I'm Craig Kenneth, a relationship coach and a psychotherapist. Every relationship is different and every breakup is different. Work with me and you'll get professional help on your situation. And if you're in no contact, focused on personal growth, my workbook series, The Knowledge, will help you make changes like you've never made before. Available now at AskCraig.net. Hi there, I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And today we're going to be talking about why does he text me weekly? Is he scam likely?
Maybe.
He keeps contacting me. What if his name was Scam Likely?
That's his first and last name?
Yeah. You know, some exes do contact you on a regular basis. Now, that doesn't happen a lot of times, right? A lot of times you don't hear from your ex for months and then they do an indirect, direct approach. But some exes will continuously reach out to you and sometimes they breadcrumb you. Sometimes they're not sure about things. Sometimes they're breadcrumbing you. But, you know, obviously we don't want anybody to just be repeatedly breadcrumbed and feeling like they're being taken advantage of or used because they're anxious.
Exactly.
Okay, so, you know, in that case, you have to set a boundary sometimes. But we're going to be talking about this today because I have a good email coaching. And I think you guys are going to like this one. This is from a woman in her mid-40s. And she was with this guy for 6.5 years. It's a long time. Now, he has a child from a previous marriage, but not with her. So she wants to know, does she have any chance of reconciling? So we're going to talk about that. She starts off by saying, one major problem was I was over-functioning and felt like a parent-child relationship. Avoided making decisions, would shut down when something went wrong as conflict to him felt like the relationship was over.
And we see that really often with these longer term relationships, that it devolves into this familial type of relationship where it feels like your partner is not your partner, but your parent, the one to guide you, the one to make decisions for you. And then you can end up losing your own independence in lieu of that.
I think she was feeling like the parent in this situation, and that he was avoiding making decisions. So she was kind of frustrated because he was just shutting down here.
And it's interesting, Esther Perel, she talks about this a lot in her work. She talks about how that familial dynamic where a partner starts feeling like a parent or like an older sibling, like this caregiver type of role, it really diminishes the desire and the lust aspect.
I could see that. Yeah.
Because who wants to have those feelings for a parent?
I would give him space and allow him to come to me. I struggled with the tantrums and meltdowns when things were not going right for him. So that would be frustrating. Could you imagine these tantrums? I don't want to go to the grocery store.
Well, you're going, little Johnny.
No, I'm not.
No choice.
I'm tired of it. Our relation, this is, by the way, this is about a 5-second sample of the cartoons in the Creative Healing course. Am I right?
That's true, with all the voices and everything.
You should hear all the voices we do. You got to check that out there's a little clip on the site, right?
Yeah.
With some of the, oh my gosh, the voices are great. We had a lot of fun. This is what it was like when we're filming cartoon stuff and doing audio recordings. Our relationship, this is more behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah.
Our relationship lacked emotional intimacy. There you have it, where you were talking about earlier. It took 15 months for him to say, I love you. He would rarely say it, but did it via text. He had a great sense of humor and loved holding hands and cuddling, but had difficulty being vulnerable and expressing his feelings towards me. I did not know how he truly felt about me. So it sounds like he's avoidant to me, a lot of these behaviors here.
And for her, that must feel extremely isolating. When you don't see your partner really opening up, it might feel like you're in a relationship with somebody who's more emotionally muted, can make you feel a lot more alone.
Yeah, it makes you doubt. Like you're always doubting, like, do they really care about me? In 2021, he had 3 deaths in his family. And I told him, and he told me if he couldn't lose weight, he was going to break up with me. It's a really bizarre thing to say. Makes me, the first thing I was thinking was like, because he was going through a breakup and he'd lose weight, like naturally from not eating. I didn't know what he was trying to imply.
It almost seems like it's either this self-deprecating, if I can't get better, then I don't deserve this relationship, or it's if I can't get my act together, it's your fault. Those are just speculations. I don't know which one it could be.
It's hard to know exactly what he meant there. It's such
Yeah.
an odd thing to say. He told me if he couldn't lose weight, he was going to break up with me. I thought it was a joke, as he restarts a new diet every week. So it sounds like he really struggles to commit to anything. By October, the lack of emotional intimacy and disconnection I felt got to me. So there you have it, what you just said a minute ago.
And I wonder if those things are related to his issues with weight loss and also his ability to be vulnerable. I wonder if he turns inwards when he's feeling down about himself, down about his weight, and that can be a really destructive cycle where the worse you feel, the more you comfort with food and so on and so forth.
That's a good point too. I told him I have been waiting halfway the whole time and showed I wouldn't abandon him and that he could trust me. He said he would try. 1 month later, I asked if he was in love with me. He watched a YouTube video on it and broke up with me the next day.
Oh my God.
Must have found one of those other coaches.
Oh my God.
I think I know which channel he found.
Wow.
But what a bizarre thing to do. It's like, do I still love this woman? Let me click on this. Click, click, click. Oh, I don't do any of those things.
And that just tells you how detached he is from himself and his ability to be self-reflective, to really think about what he felt about her. He had to turn to something external to tell him what to do, especially when he's usually dependent on her to tell him what to do, it seems.
Yeah.
When she was there to ask some questions, he was like, if the person who guides me is asking me, where do I turn? What do I do?
Very odd. I asked him to rethink his decision to take some time away. He came back and wanted to know my decision. Well, that's very bizarre, right? Confused, I said I hadn't changed. Well, why would she? I mean, she's made it clear she wants to work on this.
He's displacing the responsibility.
Yeah. He wrote a 7-page letter. My calm reaction threw him off. Well, we tell you guys. My calm reaction threw him off and asked if I was seeing someone. You see the difference of what happens when you act so confident after a breakup? I replied, I take his unhappiness very seriously, and this is the first time I'm hearing this. She did a really good job. Really good job of handling that. And acting like an adult, saying, I take your unhappiness seriously. How often do we hear something like that?
Not very.
Right? That's great. He got upset with me and pushed me away because I didn't go to his uncle's wake. Remember, he had 3 deaths in 2021, which I had 3 deaths in 2021 also, and they were within like less than 3 weeks of each other. And I could tell you, it was brutal. It left me feeling exhausted all the time. My dad and one of my best friends died like 10 days apart. And that friend's dad died like 3 days before my dad's dad died. So it leaves you so exhausted. And I was so grumpy, I didn't even want to be around myself. I literally didn't want to be around me. I'm like, I don't even want to be in my body right now. Because you're just so exhausted and overwhelmed with grief. And, obviously I've done a lot of work on myself. So I was very aware of that and did my best to manage it and, stay away from other people when I was feeling particularly grumpy or irritable and, always considerate of how my behavior was impacting, especially my kids. But when you're aware of these things, you can do it. For him, he probably just shut down as just angry at the world, right?
Yeah, and exhausted, just bringing out that emotion. He probably didn't have the emotional energy to even think about making a decision.
Yep. Okay. So even though he had told me not to go as I had to cancel work. So he tells her, don't go to the uncle's wake. She says, okay. Then he gets mad at her. Kind of set her up there, huh? Multiple times I asked if he was sure, meaning to go to the wake, and he replied yes, but he didn't know he needed me until he was there. So he got to the wake, then he was upset she wasn't there.
Mm-hmm. And when you're in grief, it's really hard to see very far in the future. You know, he probably thought, okay, she doesn't want to go. I don't want to argue about this. I don't have emotional energy for that right now. Then when he found himself alone in the moment, he was like, wow, I didn't think this through. Wow, this is overwhelming. I need somebody here to support me.
Yep. Apparently, I triggered him. He couldn't get rid of the feeling inside, even though he knew I wouldn't cheat on him and felt our relationship was toxic. But he wouldn't have grown into the person he is today without me. I'm not sure why she's mentioning toxic. Maybe he felt he was toxic? Because he had displayed some toxic behaviors at the start of the email. He wanted to go and be left alone, to disappear. Doesn't want to be in a relationship, and his mental health is bad. Wow. I think he's very depressed. Mm-hmm. I don't know who the other two people are. I know it's the uncle. I don't know how close he is to them. But if he was even relatively close to them, I think it would have a huge impact on him. Mm-hmm. 3 deaths in 1 year.
Yeah.
I don't know how close they were together. I can tell you when it happened to me, it was exhausting. It's very tough.
Yeah, and while she can't take away that grief that he's experiencing, she can support him in the best way possible. It sounds like she tried. It sounds like she wanted to be there for him. Mm-hmm. I wonder if he interpreted that as being toxic, the fact that she couldn't relieve him of these really terrible feelings. I don't know. That's a jump.
Yeah, I mean, he was probably all over the place after the deaths, right? He always knew the breakup would be mutual, but it's clear that it's not mutual. He's kind of distorting reality, I think, so he feels like relieved that he didn't hurt her, right? That's the point I'm getting with that. He offered me friendship, and I declined. He said his decision could be a big mistake, and that I'm going to be hard to beat. Well, that's nice to know.
I guess.
You at least you feel like, all right, he feels like he's going to have a hard time with this, and it's not an easy decision.
But it's also a mixed message. On one end, did he say that he felt the relationship was toxic? On the other end, he's saying that she's going to be hard to beat. What's going on?
Well, I think that we're looking at the product of 3 deaths in 1 year, and somebody being exhausted, confused, frustrated, sad, a lot of different things. Okay. I accepted it. No begging, no pleading. He left 2 months later and said I made it hard for him to leave because he enjoyed spending time with me lately and knows that I will keep in touch with him. Will keep in touch with him? Or won't. I went straight into no contact. He messaged me weekly for 2 months. Ooh, that's brutal. If somebody kept reaching out to me, at some point I'm going to have to say, I can't keep doing this. You either want to work on this with me or don't. I understand. But you reaching out to me is not fair to me. Yeah. And I don't think it's fair to her.
I agree. It's also 6.5 years. That's a long period of time. And for him, this might have been a decision that he made impulsively. It might have been a decision that he felt he needed to do for whatever reason. And now that he's in it, just like the issue with the wake, now that he's in it, experiencing it, he's thinking, what am I going to do without this person that I care about? What am I going to do without my emotional support, the person who guides me? I think this is all related to that parent-child dynamic.
Yeah, and that's a great point. She said, I stayed in no contact. Last week, he reached out wanting to discuss finances and belongings. We had already had a written agreement. I was confused. Sounds like an excuse to talk, right? 24 hours later, I replied, arranged for him to come over to talk about the process. He said I looked really happy and walked around our house and even asked why my bed was off center. So he's thinking somebody's coming over and move the bed. I think that's what he's worried about. Because he's wandering around, looking around. Probably, did she take my pictures down?
Does he have like some chalk behind the bed or something?
Your bed's off center. I've never heard that one
It's
before.
an odd thing to notice.
But he noticed it, and I think we're going to see some projecting here because I remembered a little bit of this email coaching here at the end. The next day, he brought over a gift, then told me he was seeing somebody. I stayed composed and said, okay. Man, she is a champ.
My gosh.
She is a champ.
Most people would have not done that.
Not me. I would have fallen on the floor and melted like lava. Like, why?
Oh my gosh.
No, that's awful. And she's done so well every time. And I think that's what keeps bringing him back and making him interested here. I was hoping to reconcile, but not now. I thought he was just having a mental breakdown. I don't understand why he had to tell me about the other girl.
I was thinking the same thing. Especially if he's texting her for a couple months after the breakup. It's another mixed message. I want to continue communication. I want to continue this relationship going. And also I'm seeing somebody else.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think that, he's really kind of overwhelmed with the losses here. And this is another one. And he's just all over the place. And maybe he's wanting to see if she'll give a reaction, get angry at him, that if he still has her, or if she gets all upset, then she still cares about me. But I think the reason he was looking at the bed was because he was hooking up with somebody else. And so he wanted to see if she was doing the same.
It's a possibility.
He wanted to think, he was wondering if she was doing the same thing he was doing. So I think that's kind of why he was wandering around the house, looking around.
I don't know if I'm fully convinced that it's true that he's seeing somebody else at this point.
He could be making it up. But one reason I would think he is telling the truth is when people are depressed, a lot of times they act out because they can't sit with the depression and the grief. And so they're acting out impulsively and doing things like hooking up with other people as a distraction from the pain and the grief.
Well, pain and grief are also libido killers. So that's what makes me wonder, how is he suddenly able to be involved in another relationship so soon after the breakup, also while he's dealing with all this grief? And is he able to feel sexual with somebody else at this point? I don't know. I have some big questions about that.
Well, he's wondering about that with her, I think. And so I think it's kind of reflecting on what he's doing. So, you could be right. Maybe he's not. But, Margaret used to say that one of the hardest things for people is to grieve. That's one of the things people don't want to do is grieve. And so acting out and finding some random hookup, would be a way to alleviate that and temporarily feel good. So
possibilities.
At this point, I would just say to him, look, if you want to repair this, you got my number. We can talk. But I can't keep having you reach out to me like this. It's not fair to me. It hurts me. It keeps me stuck. And you're dating somebody else. So contact me if you want to talk and you're single and you're willing to get help and work through this stuff. But I don't think she should be so eager to do it, because unless he grieves and works through this, he could continue the act outs if he is acting out and doing a bunch of things that are out of character for him.
Yeah, and he's also putting her in a couple double binds where it's lose-lose situations. So I don't know if that's going to help her out in the long term, especially with the situation with the wake. He said it was fine, then it wasn't fine. We don't know what else could come out of that type of mentality.
Yeah.
And not to say that I don't think she should be there during his grief process, but he also made a decision.
That's right.
Part of that is dealing with the consequences.
And that means not getting to talk to you every week for 2 months.
Yeah.
So in that case, or something similar to that, I'd say, look, you can't keep reaching out to me. Reach out to me if you're really serious about repairing this. Don't let him keep breadcrumbing you.
Yeah. And grief can be really intense, but it's no reason for you to be mistreated, misheard. And I really hope that he can see some of how his grief is affecting the people that he loves and the people around him.
I think the big thing is that the reason he keeps reaching out every week is because he's not really convinced that he wants to move on and he's not over her. ultimately. All right, tough situation. Of course, if you want to get our help personally, you can do that on my website, askcraig.net. I do email coaching and I do Skype. Coach Victoria is also available for Skype coaching.
I'm here if you need to talk.
Just click on her name on the top of the website to schedule with her. But that's it for this video. I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And we will talk with you soon.